All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Writing a Professional Bio. So tonight we are going to be obviously talking about writing your bio. And if you've never met me before, my name is Jennifer Hernandez. I am a registered dietitian, a nutrition educator, a mom, a PhD student, and a certified speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team. I'm probably leaving a few things out, and I could have pulled up my recently revised bio and read it to you, but that's okay. We are going to talk about why you need a bio, how many different types of bios are there. If you have a guess, throw it in the chat, and we're going to give you some tips for writing or revising your bio. So what is your bio? Well, it's a strategic way of telling people who you are. So you can use it to get a job, you can use it to gain visibility or respect, you can use it in networking. So I did, in preparation for this, look over my bios and revise them. And so I have a bio on my Facebook page. If you didn't find me through my Facebook page, one is Jennifer Hernandez RD, one is Nutrition First Solutions. And then I also put it on my LinkedIn, right? And so LinkedIn is a great place to be if you are looking for a job or wanting to network with other professionals. And so you really want to have a great bio on there because it's going to be the first thing that people see about you. So it's a way for you to sing your own praises, right? We often sing other people's praises and talk about all the things that they've accomplished. Well, here's your chance in your bio to show off your best self. Now, bios can be used for different purposes. And so it's often recommended that you have 3 different versions of your bio prepared. So the first one would be a 2-line synopsis. If you have ever done a Facebook page, there's a really short section that you can fill out. And I forget what the character limit is, but it's almost like Twitter, right? It's super short. So that's where you would put your 2-line synopsis. That could also be like your elevator pitch, right? You meet somebody in passing and you just give them that 2-line synopsis of what you do. Now your short bio is traditionally less than 2 paragraphs. And then your full bio or your long bio can take up to a full page. I know my bio ended up being like 4 paragraphs. So if I have a short bio need, I need to cut some stuff out of mine. Most of the time, you're going to use a short bio, right? A long bio is great for a website. Also, like I said, for LinkedIn, I've got my full bio on my LinkedIn profile in case anybody randomly happens to find me. So everybody should have a professional bio ready to go. You never know when you might need it. Again, you might have a website and you want to have your bio on there. Get a LinkedIn, especially if you are a student currently or a new grad. Get LinkedIn. That's going to be a great way to get out there and network and put this bio on there so that people can see who you are and what kinds of work you're interested in. It may be that you do a presentation, right? And so you may need a bio for the speaker introduction, for the brochures, flyers, social postings about it. I had to present a bio because I was recently awarded the Educator of the Year for Future Education Model Programs in the Western region. And so I had to have a bio that they read at that virtual presentation. Okay, so you just never know when someone's going to ask you for a bio. So it's a great thing to do now. All right, so why do you want a bio? Well, not everyone's going to have your resume handy, right? Resumes have very specific purposes, and you're going to use that resume when you apply for jobs. But that bio on your website, on your LinkedIn, you can, have it on your Instagram. You're going to have a really short version probably on Instagram. more people are going to see that than will see your resume. Also, keep in mind when you're writing that bio that people aren't necessarily going to know anything about you. They're not going to have your background. They're not going to have your resume in front of them. And so they're not going to know your experiences. So you want it to be an engaging bio, but you also really want to make sure that you're sharing who you are and what experiences you bring to the table, because you never know when that bio can help you to make a connection, make a sale, or get a new counseling client, whatever it is that you're trying to do. All right, so let's talk some nuts and bolts about writing your bio. Do you write in first person, say I, me, we, or in the third person? Some people find that it's easier to write in the third person, that you're removing yourself a little bit from the writing and it might come easier. Other people are going to be the opposite. Maybe it's easier to write in first person. So as you start writing your bio, it doesn't really matter. Just pick one and see which one feels better to you. Now, make sure you're not flipping back and forth in your writing. So make sure you proofread it and that you are looking to see that you're consistent in the voice that you use. And then think about when you share that bio out, why are you sharing it and who are you sharing it with? Because if you are writing it for a speaker presentation, for instance, and someone else is going to read your bio, well, they're going to speak in third person. They're not going to say, I am this, I am that, when they're talking about you. If it's for your own website or your Instagram or even your LinkedIn, you could say I, right? Whatever feels the most comfortable and appropriate to the situation. Same thing for level of formality, right? If you are writing your bio for an executive level position, you're probably going to be pretty formal, right? If you are doing YouTube videos where you do really goofy cooking shows, well, your bio is going to sound different, right? You're going to write it in a different voice. You're going to be a little less formal, maybe use smaller words. You probably don't want to be super informal, but if that's your target market, if that is how you would interact with your target market, then go for it, right? You don't want to come across as cold and impersonal. You don't want to come off as unprofessional, but only you know who it is you're talking to, right? You may be able to get input from other people, but just in a generic setting like this right now, I couldn't tell you whether it's better to be formal or informal unless we take some time to chit chat about what is the purpose and who are you writing to. All right, so as we get started, where are you going to start? Well, most people sit there and they don't even know what to say. So start with your name, right? Begin with your first and your last name, because you don't want people to read your whole bio and be like, who was that person, right? So you want to make sure that your name shows up in your bio. All right, so now that you've told people your name, in your first sentence, talk about your title and your role in the company that you work for, right? So your first sentence should include all of those things, your title, role, and the company you work for. You're always gonna start with the current. It's just kind of like a resume, right? We go in reverse chronological order. So you're not necessarily gonna list off every job and every school in your bio, but you definitely wanna start with the current one. Now, if you're writing this bio because you have an interest in starting your own practice or maybe a side gig, whatever that looks like for you, feel free to use that personal private practice or side gig as your business. You don't necessarily have to say what you do at your full-time job. If the purpose of that bio is to reach out to people who can partner with you or be clients in your side gig and not necessarily your main full-time job. However, if your full-time job is important to, say, networking and maybe the next position you're trying to get, then by all means, talk about what job you're in. Now, after you say your name, your position, your role, your company, explain what you do. Don't assume that everyone understands what that is. If you are a dietetic intern, don't expect that anyone outside of the world of dietetics knows what that means. Okay, if you do have your own private practice, make sure that people understand what that specifically means. Do you do diabetes education? Do you only work with kids? What is it that your job involves? Because even within the world of dietetics, we all do different things. And so, oh, you're a dietitian? Okay, can have a different meaning in my head than in someone else's. Now, another great piece in your bio is to connect your job to your values and your passions. So maybe your current job doesn't align super well. You can always talk about how your current position has helped you to see that. Don't ever bash, right, the job that you have now. This is also great for anybody who is applying to programs and you're writing your personal statement. So for like grad school, talk about how the job you're doing connects to your values and passions. I don't care if you are a barista at a coffee shop, right? Talk about the things that you do that are preparing you for your next step. What have you learned about food safety? What have you learned about cross contact and preventing cross contamination, right? There are so many ways that you can tie jobs that don't seem super nutrition related or dietetics related into your future career and how they've molded you into that. The same thing, let's say you have only ever worked as a diet aide and you have zero desire to work clinically. That's fine. I get it. I've been there, right? But talk about how your role as a diet aide has helped you to really understand your passion. So maybe it's you have seen how all these therapeutic diets are necessary for people because their previous diet and lifestyle led to, you know, the development or progression of a specific condition, and you don't want to work with sick care, you want to work on the prevention side, right? So you can tell a whole story about how the job you have now aligns to your values and passion. Share what it is that you love about your work, why you were drawn to the field in the first place. Again, this is great advice for personal statements as well as within your bio. All right, so we've got like our first paragraph pretty well lined out, right? Because we're talking about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. So what comes next? Well, you want to have a list of your accomplishments. And if you are like most type A dietitians, it's going to be really hard for you to come up with. I actually had to squeeze in my certification as a speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team and my Outstanding Dietetic Educator of the Year, even though I just got it in April. Those were not initially, they didn't jump out at me as I was writing my bio, right? So you're going to write some stuff, you're going to come back to it, you're going to think about all those things you've done. Now, for those of you who are amazing, which I'm sure is everyone, you probably have a laundry list of accomplishments. So for your short bio, choose your top 2 or 3 accomplishments to list. If you're using a full bio, you can list additional accomplishments. Remember that there are things that are accomplishments that you maybe don't think of as an accomplishment. Okay, so if you're having trouble coming up with that list, think about teams that you've been part of, projects that you've taken on, clubs and organizations. There are probably lots of things that you've done that you might not think of as a specific accomplishment. And most type A dietitian type peoples are not going to give themselves credit where credit is due. If you're really struggling coming up with your accomplishments, ask someone, ask a friend, ask a family member. And I'm sure that someone will be able to come up with something that you've done that you can add to your bio. Now, as you write your bio, interject a little bit of your personality, right? You don't want it to be cold and impersonal. You don't want it to be sterile, right? So you want to show people that you are a real person. And typically people are going to connect better if they know they have something in common. So do you have hobbies? Do you have projects that you work on that people could relate to? Whatever it is that you decide to include, don't go on and on about it, right? Try to keep it down to a single sentence, but just give them a little picture of who you are outside of your job and your accomplishments. Now, you may want to add some humor into that bio. Remember, back when we were talking about the formality of the bio, it may or may not be appropriate. Also, when you use humor, make sure that it comes across in a way that you intend it to. So I tend to have a very dry sense of humor, and I tend to be sarcastic, which is not necessarily a positive character trait. So I don't personally put humor in my bio because even some of my friends can't always get my humor. And that's fine. That's me. I'm quirky and I'm okay with that. I love myself. And my family loves me, and that's, all I need. And I've got people who love me in this world, despite my flaws and my sarcasm and my dry humor. So humor is not part of my bio. It could be part of your bio, but again, just make sure that your humor comes across the way you want it to. Do you want to use it sparingly? You want to use it at appropriate times. And you also want to think about, how does it fit within your personal or professional brand? So we talked about building a brand, I want to say it was back in December. And those recordings are available if you want to go back and listen to that. But what is your brand? Is your brand very, buttoned up and professional? Is your brand witty and sarcastic? Cool. Whichever it is, just make sure that your bio fits your brand and you're not telling, dad jokes if that's not part of your brand. Now, as you're looking at that bio, like I said earlier, it's going to be a lot like a resume where you're going to work backwards chronologically, right? Reverse chronological order. Typically, you're also not going to start with where you went to school unless you just graduated. Okay, so for those of you who are dietetic interns, new grads, sure, you can talk about that you just completed your dietetic internship with XYZ university or program. I'm not going to do that because I graduated 21 years ago, okay, or I completed my internship 21 years ago. Now, maybe, and fingers crossed, a year and a half, I will put in, front and center that I have my PhD, but I don't have that yet, so that's not a big part of my bio either. I do mention that I'm a student, but that's not the main focus. Now, if you attended a prestigious university, you may put that in your bio, but I wouldn't put it like in the first sentence, because then you're just coming off as kind of uppity and stuffy and name dropping, okay? So if you feel like sharing that you came from that university is a benefit, go for it. Maybe if I were speaking at my alma mater, then I would put in there, right, that I graduated from there. Or if you know that a lot of people in attendance would relate to that school. I live in Arizona and I went to schools in Tennessee and Missouri. And so most people that I would talk to in a professional setting don't really relate to where I went to school prior to my current degree. When you write your bio, please take out the fluff, take out the run-on sentences, Use punctuation appropriately. Read your bio out loud. Does it sound like a run-on sentence? Does it sound like you're just going on and on and on and on? So if you've ever been to grad school, you probably learned how to cut out the fluff, right? One of my very first grad school classes, we had to write a 6-page paper with 12 to 15 references. Okay, we learned how to write concisely by default, right? It wasn't something we wanted to do, but we had to cut it down. Like, we could not go over 6 pages. So think about it in that term, right? People do not have an attention span, so they're not going to read a 5-page bio. Make sure that you've got it down to the essentials, short, sweet, and to the point. Now, we also don't want to overshare in the bio, right? So there is a fine line between sharing the essentials and oversharing. So you can put in some personal details. Again, we want to, show off your personality and who you are. So you can have some personal details. You can list your college. Don't list every college you've ever attended. If you're like me, I'm on college number 4, because I did 2 for my undergrad and then 1 for master's and now 1 for a PhD. Okay, I don't have every single college in there. You don't need to list off every charitable activity or hobby, right? That can go in a book that you write someday about the amazing life of this person. But try not to overshare in your bio. All right, this one should be obvious, right? Don't lie. It is so easy in today's day and age to disprove false claims. So don't lie, don't exaggerate. Be honest about who you are and what you've done. One that jumps out at me in terms of, lying and false claims was on the Food Network. Chef Robert Irvine. He actually got fired temporarily from the Food Network because he had exaggerated his role in different things. It seems like Food Network couldn't find a personality to replace him because he was only fired for like a year and now he has shows again. But that might not be your luck, right? It might not work out that well for you. So let's just play it safe, be honest, and don't over exaggerate. Don't call yourself the most influential, the most innovative, the greatest one in your profession, right? Use facts to back up. So list your awards, accolades that you've received, titles, instead of these, really nebulous words that probably can't be verified. But I feel like this is the problem that most dietitians and women in general have, is that we tend to undersell ourselves, right? So we don't want to downplay our achievements. The point of your bio is to highlight those achievements, especially the ones that are pertinent to what you're trying to accomplish with your bio. Again, are you trying to get private practice clients? Are you trying to sell speaking gigs? Are you trying to sell online courses? Whatever it is, make sure that those are highlighted in the way your bio is written. Try not to use, and I just did it, passive verbs or verbs that downplay what you're doing. So don't say I'm trying to or I'm attempting to, right? Use positive action words where you sound confident and capable, okay? You're all very capable people, and so we want to make sure that our language is strong and supportive and shows that we are. Don't assume that people are actively looking for you, right? Always assume that when somebody comes across your bio, they stumbled across it, right? Maybe someone else shared a social media posting and that brought them to your social media page. and somehow they come across you, don't assume they know anything about you. So make sure that your words can captivate their attention. They're not going to take 10 minutes to learn about who you are and where you grew up and everything in your childhood that brought you to the place you are today. At best, you have 30 seconds to gain their interest and attention. And if you do, they're more likely to read on, but most likely you have to get them in the first few sentences. All right, so be clear in the message that you want to convey, get there quickly. And one way to do that is to come up with one word to summarize you best and work from there. So what are you? Who are you? Are you a coach? Are you a speaker? What exactly is it that you do? And then use that to guide and captivate the attention of your reader. Now, make sure that you are revising your bio. I literally had to revise my bio this week because there was no way I was going to sit here and do this presentation without having revised that bio, right? Because you can always tell when you come across bios that are years old and outdated. Okay, don't be that person. Update all of your bios, your 2-line one, your short one, and your long one at least once a year. Okay, if you need to put a date on your calendar, make yourself a calendar appointment, recurring every year, revise that bio. And I know this isn't really about applying for dietetic internships, but going back to that thought, I've been in a position of program management for interns and future education model programs for 7 years now. And I have read personal statements from people who did not match and did not revise that personal statement. Okay, make sure that you're rereading it and revising it at least annually. And we live in an amazing day and age where technology is at our fingertips. So you can link your bio to samples of your work. In my program, we require our undergrads, they used to require our grad students to make like a Wix website, some kind of free website to have a professional portfolio. This year, my grad students didn't do that in one of their first courses. So when they came to me in their last course and they were supposed to, update and finalize it, they hadn't done it yet. So I just made them make a LinkedIn, which I'm sure they probably already had, and update their LinkedIn account. But even on LinkedIn, you can still link to samples of your work. And again, think about it strategically. What is it that you are trying to show in those links? Are you a coach? Maybe you have testimonials somewhere. Are you a social media manager? Link to your social media so they can see what kind of postings you do. Whatever it is that you do, link your bio to samples of your work. Make it easy for people to see. Present a link to everything that you mention. Okay, because people are really not going to take time to look everything up, especially if it's a bio on your website. Oh my gosh, you can hyperlink everything to every single award or everything that you want to say about yourself. Test your bio out with different audiences. Remember that your bio is probably the thing that more people are going to see than anything else. Okay, so make sure you try it with a variety of people. Now, if you want to niche down to where you only work with 12 to 15-year-old gymnasts who wants to be Olympians, then test it with 12 to 15-year-old girls and their parents, right? Because they're probably, the parents are the ones that are going to be paying you. But if you're not niching down that far and you're going to have a broader audience, then make sure that your bio works with different audiences. Another really important thing to watch for here is jargon, right? As a dietitian, we can say all kinds of things. So I could, in my bio, talk about how I have managed EN and TPN and PPN, and people outside of nutrition are not going to have a clue what I just said, right? So we want to watch our acronyms and we want to watch our jargon. Same thing could be said. I could go into a whole acronym and jargon tirade about dietetics education, and even people within dietetics won't know what I'm talking about if they're not within dietetics education. Now again, if you're not going to connect with people outside of that, then the words you use are a little less important. If my target market is dietetic educators, then I could use all of that dietetic education jargon that I wanted to. But just remember, keep in mind, who's your target audience and who are you wanting to engage with that bio? All right, I do have a list of resources, and typically I delete this slide out because on a webinar you can't see the resources. But if you are curious about some of those resources, I can put them in the chat, or you could always ask me for them. All right, so here are the things that I think are the most important takeaways from what we talked about. Make your writing clear, concise, and error-free. You are probably going to lose people. We didn't actually talk about the error-free part, but you're probably going to lose people if you have a whole bunch of typos in your bio. Now, depending on if you're using slang and things like that, then, you know, again, if that's your target market. One of my personal pet peeves, I am so type A. If you all don't know me personally, I am so type A. And one of my pet peeves is daycare centers that use cutesy spellings like kids care, and it's KIDZ, KARE. Okay, if you can't spell properly, you don't get my child, right? Because I want my child to learn how to spell things correctly. But that's just me. Like, it works for other people because there's tons of daycare centers out there that use that kind of cutesy spelling. But you just lost my business. Use humor sparingly, right? Show your personality, interject who you are. It's so hard to do in the written word, but you also don't want to overdo it. And then double check how the things that you wrote come across to different audiences. Again, the written word is so difficult. Think about a time when you wrote an email or a text message and the receiver received it differently than you intended. Or you received one and you were like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that they just said that to me. Okay, written word is super hard, so make sure you're testing it out with a variety of people. All right, I would love to hear what piece sticks out to you the most. Put it in the chat. I would love to hear what you found to be the most important. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. It is June something. What is today's date? June 6th. I should have known that. 2021 right now. Rumor has it that I will be off of my full-time job for the entire month of July, which means if you are interested in coaching, I will be fairly open in July to take on a couple of coaching clients. Additionally, super excited for those of you dietitians, new professionals who are interested in starting a private practice or a side gig. Maybe you have one already in the works that you have been starting. I'm going to be launching something with a couple of colleagues of mine that is going to be called the Dietitian Collaborative. And I am so excited to share more about it. I need to pick a date and get that webinar set up so that we can talk about how we can work together to build a great collaborative of dietitians to help out as we go out into the world and share our nutrition knowledge with people who need it. All right, so thank you so much for joining me tonight on this webinar. I love having you all. I, once again, have not picked a July topic. Another thing that I have, kind of in my back pocket right now is my CDR 5-year cycle for those of you dietitians and diet techs. Otherwise, for the rest of the world, I'm talking jargon right now, but my CDR 5-year cycle is up, maybe already. I forget when that cut point is. Is it August? And so I need to do my next 5-year learning plan. And of course, CDR just changed the way the learning plans were done 5 years ago, and they changed it again. So I am probably going to do a screen share as I set up my own 5-year plan so that others can see how I did it, because I know last time there was a lot of questions about how to do it, how do you set yours up, what do you include in it. So that will probably come in July, since I'll have some free time on my hands. I don't know if that will be my first Sunday webinar or if I will choose a different topic. Feel free to put in the chat if you have anything specific that you would like to see me do in the coming months. And thank you so much for joining. I love doing these webinars, and I look forward to talking with people soon. Have a great night.